Hello, hello, and welcome to the Grandma's Wealth Wisdom YouTube channel and podcast. Joining me today is Sarah Walton. I'm really excited for her to share her story with you. Be sure that you are active in the comments, say hi, pop in a question, share a thought, what things are meaning for you. We're excited. And if you're catching the replay, the comments are still open. You can use them. So, Sarah, we've got a really awesome topic today, myths that keep us broke. And I'm really excited to share that. But before we get into that, we need to get to know you a little bit better, more than just what's in the bio that we attach. And I know you've got an amazing story, what brought you to entrepreneurship and kind of jutting out on your own. Take us back to kind of some of those earliest memories about money and how you were introduced to money as a kid.
Oh boy. How long do we have again? No, I'm just kidding. So it's like, gosh. So my story really does start when I was 5, Amanda, like all the way back there, as most of us do, right? Like we were complex beings. But when I was 5, I was watching the Nutcracker with my mom and I pointed to the screen and I was like, I want to do that. Like I was watching the ballerinas. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so we were poor. I mean, we were really poor. And so I couldn't quite have dance lessons. I'd have them sort of sporadically when we could, but it wasn't really a consistent thing. But I had this goal. Once I hit high school, I just had to be on the dance team. Like it was this lifelong goal I had to do it. Oh my gosh. I was just, come on. So when it came time to try out, when I was 15, it was very exciting. I worked my rear end off. Actually, I didn't. It's still there. But I worked really, really hard. And I did those Janet Jackson pop-ups and Paula Abdul's, like videos that only us old people know. But I worked really hard and I made the team. And I was so excited. This really was at the ripe old age of 15, like the biggest thing I could have done for myself. And as we were celebrating, we got the letter about how much, the jacket cost and the costumes cost and the shoes. And I don't know, Amanda, if you've ever had like one of those like out of body experiences where you like watch yourself have something happen. And that was sort of what this was like. Like I'm holding the letter and I'm like, wait, I worked so hard for this and now I can't have it. And when I say we were poor, I mean, there were times where we had half a loaf of bread that my mother had made from scratch and a jar of honey. The end, like that kind of poor. And so what I decided to do at that age was get a job at the mall because malls were still a thriving thing. If you've watched Stranger Things, you know what I'm talking about. It was a thing. And I sold tchotchkes from a little cart in the middle of the store, in the middle of the mall kind of a thing. And I got my first paycheck and I was so excited because it was enough for a down payment on the costumes. I was super jazzed. So I had to go to the grocery store to get the check cash because that's what we did way back then. And as we're walking into the store, my mom says, "Hey, Sarah, the strawberries are on sale. Can we get them?" And I remember thinking, there's the strawberries and there's my costume. And I know if you're into therapy at all, your brain just exploded. That's a whole different conversation. We'll have that later. But as I walk in there, I'm like, great, I can do both. So I go to cash my check. My mom goes to get the strawberries with my younger brother. And once I have the money in my hand, I run over to, the fast checkout lane, the speedy one, and she's not there. And I kind of got nervous. And then I started walking up and down the aisles and I see my mom in line with a cart full of groceries. And I know she can't pay for those. Right. And it's nothing crazy. It's bread and lunch meat for my little brother's lunches. It's his favorite breakfast cereal. It's some milk, damn strawberries. Right. And I'm like standing there watching this happen and thinking of the money. And I'm like, I can take care of something I've wanted for as long as I can remember, or I can take care of my family, but I can't do both. And that was the moment I decided that was impossible. Yeah. You could not do both. And I made that real. I made that true. I left Little Sandy, Utah, where that story happened. And I moved to New York City because why make it easy? And I, rose to the top. I worked my rear end off yet again, still there. Anyway, and I worked and I get all the way to the top and I'm miserable. I have 2 kids I never see. And my marriage is totally strained. I'm not healthy. I was about 10 pounds thinner than I am now. That part wasn't so horrible, but it wasn't for good reasons. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I can't take care of myself and my family. I told myself that when I was, 15, 16 years old. I made that decision. I said those words out loud and I made it real. And that was the day that I left. And I was like, no, I'm not letting any other women feel this way.
Yeah. That's such a story that I think so many of us can relate to. I think all of us have two things in our life that we feel like we can't do both, and that life is all about trade-offs. And the like corporate world tries to talk about like balance, and we like throw our hands up like, no, balance is impossible. Like, hate that word, right? And I totally agree. But like, whether it's work and family, what you've dreamed about and taking care of things, saving for retirement and living well today, it always feels like it's a trade-off. And I have a feeling this is going to come up as we're talking through today.
Yeah.
But so you branch out on your own.
Yeah.
What did you start learning about money and being self-employed and entrepreneurship and, like going after maybe having some family time and, I don't know, maybe you thought there's not going to be any money then?
I was terrified. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason I hadn't quit earlier, and I wanted to, there were some serious 3 a.m. sobbing episodes, where it was just like, how the hell why can't I quit? What has happened here? Because I was making a lot of money, but it was disappearing. Yeah. And that pain of being stuck in something you hate. And it is still to this day, the most common question I get is, Sarah, no, seriously, how can I leave my job and do something I love because I'm going to die? Like, it feels like that. And I remember my chest being tight all the time. My stomach hurt all the time. I joke around about being thinner, but I really was, because I couldn't eat. That's not what, right? Like, that's not okay. But it really was this feeling of just being trapped. And I think, the reason I started my business was that as I rose in ranks in corporate America, I more and more often was the only woman in the room, except for sometimes the head of HR. Right. That was it. It was me and a bunch of dudes who talked over me and interrupted me and then acted like something I said, they said 5 minutes later. And it was the first time anybody, like all the stuff that we've all been through. And I remember sitting there, particularly during a projections meeting. I was known to say things. I know you're all shocked. Where I actually said, I'm so sorry to be talking while you're interrupting. That was my favorite one ever. They were like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm still talking. Like one of those moments, but it was one of these. And I'm sitting there and I was having that experience as a human being of like, what is happening here? And why am I the only woman in this room? And then I went to the content of what we were discussing, and it was financial projections. And I'm like, this is, are there some formulas you need to know in Excel? Yeah, maybe, but you can learn that. This is not much beyond fourth grade math. Let's be honest, right? It's not, you and I've talked about that too, right? Come on. This is math. This is not proprietary information. Like, what is happening, And that was really where I started to think there's a reason more women aren't in this room with me right now. And I think that's BS. And that's really when I started to look at that, I was having my own response to all the money I was making. Like, where is this going? How am I not in more control of this? And then watching that more women felt out of control inside that conversation. That's why they weren't there, or they were strategically left out. And I'm looking at this going, oh, I'm done with this. So it was kind of a personal and professional, like, I don't even know what's a combo, but that's not quite a harsh enough word, because it felt like a boom. It was like, wait a minute, these are connected. And that was when I really decided I could teach other women how to do this. And that's what I teach even now is like, look at your own experience, look at your own expertise, and look at your own talents. You can literally create a business around anything. And then what you need to learn is what a P&L is and what your profit margins are. And you need to learn how to sell. All learnable. Yeah. But your experience, your expertise, and your talents, no one else has that. The stuff I teach you, that you can just like put in there and learn and then go kick some assets. But the rest of it, right, that's all you, and really helping women understand that that's real. Nobody else has the same combo you have. And if you learn how to package that and sell it, I mean, the sky's the limit. And we've seen it. We see it all the time. We see it on Shark Tank, right? We see it in Sarah Blakely. We see it all over the place, that when you actually learn the skills you need to run a business, you can do it all. The content of the business can change.
Yep.
Be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered your question, Amanda, but that was my honest answer. Yeah.
So it sounds like you had, if I'm like reflecting back, it sounds like you had this seed of an idea. Hey, this could be possible. It could be that each of us has this thing, and if we just had some basic building blocks, we could go see that thing become reality. And so you left the job, you went and you tested your seed, you planted it, you watered it, you helped it grow, and you're seeing, yeah, this is true. You're seeing lots of people, mostly women probably, find that is, they just, if they learn these couple things, that seed can grow in them, can grow and produce fruit for them, their family, all those things.
Their freedom. Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Okay. So there's a lot of hurdles, some glass ceilings, some, things that are in our way, but some of that is our own junk. Some of it is junk we learned from other people. I want to start moving into the 3 months myths that are keeping us broke.
Yeah.
Tell us, start with the first one, right? I imagine some of these are going to surprise us. I'm excited to kind of start going through them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love what you said, by the way, because we all have personal blocks, right?
Yep.
They're personal, but they're not usually that original. Just something to keep in mind. Like they tend to kind of get grouped into certain things. Yeah. So let's dive into the 3 and we'll see where everybody lands, but it has to be in here. So the first myth, and I just want to say there's a lot going on in my industry where people take ideas and they don't say where they got them. So I want to say everything I'm about to teach you about these 3 myths came from, I changed it a bit since I first read it, but it came from a book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. And I recommend everyone on the planet read that book because it's amazing. And like I said, I've changed it a bit, but here we go. So myth number 1 is that there's not enough. And this is taught to us very, very young age, especially in the States. I have a small 2-minute YouTube video somebody took of me speaking on a stage about when I do this thing. I hate the game musical chairs. I think it is the most effed up game anybody has ever come up with on the planet. And what it does is teach children it's okay to knock your friends to the floor so you get yours. And it's like, what? And we think this is funny. And I'm like, how is this happening? Right? But this idea that like, let's take chairs away and see what idiot is left without a chair. And that's where it starts. It starts in this idea that like, you got to get yours because if you don't, there's not enough. And it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. And I think, anytime somebody questions me like that, and we haven't been in amusement parks for a while, but I'll say, have you ever checked out a garbage can in an amusement park? There's enough. It's disgusting. There is so much food in that garbage can. I mean, it is like, but there's not wait, what? It's not real. It's an illusion. And that illusion has us start doing just some shady stuff. This is when people get into trouble. This is when they overspend, right? Because they're like, I got to get it. It's on sale. Like that. So do you need it? Or like, are you worried that you don't have enough? And really understanding that fear, that myth, that flat out lie has just been fed to us over and over and over from second 1. And it keeps people broke because they make really bad decisions based on this fear that they're not going to get theirs. And it is so, so toxic. And it's really dangerous. And like I said, to me, the most important thing is when you're in that headspace, right? And you can make it play out. Money is the one we're talking about, but you can see this happen to people who are looking for romantic relationships, right? People looking for clients, people trying to find a voice on social media or in video, pick a thing, right? There's not enough eyeballs on me. There's not enough. When you live inside that myth, you do things that are not aligned at all with your highest self. And that's probably the most effective way for me to say that, because when you get that there is enough, you just go like that. I mean, you immediately can just go hang out with your friends and breathe.
Mm.
I actually have enough jeans. I have enough sweaters. I have enough shoes. I have enough food. Like, if you can get into that, all of a sudden the pressure cooker people find themselves in around money disappears. And understanding that our part to play in that is to be responsible for how we respond to the marketing, to the sales, to all those things that pressure you into feeling like, well, you're going to miss
Yeah.
it. Right. And that
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally, and I love that you attributed where it came from. I remember, when I was taking, like, my first psychology course in, somewhere between, like, high school and college, and I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then my mom was watching Dr. Phil that night, and he was totally talking about it and not saying what it was, and I was like, "Dr. Phil, come on, this is, like, not your stuff." Anyway, so I love.
It's like in our industry. It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Um, so, but so this, for me, it brings up what I love so much about what I've learned from Marie Kondo, where it's like focusing on the things that bring you joy, and then you'll see that sense of enough. And that, for me, that's how I get connected with feeling like I have enough, is
Mhm.
being like, well, what's bringing me joy, and focusing there rather than on all the things that I quote unquote should be doing, or, that I feel pressure to, or think, well, success looks like X, Y, or Z. It's like, actually, let me see what's actually bringing me joy. And if I've got enough of those things, then I'm good.
That's right. And you can see too how that breaks up that idea of the fight between retirement and a great life right now, right? It's
Yep,
gone now.
exactly.
Now it's gone.
Exactly. Yep.
Because you can keep a little bit here to buy, I don't know if you need an extra plate or whatever the heck you think you need, right? And then
Right.
you can put a good solid chunk in retirement too, and both are happy.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Marie Kondo fan too. Anytime somebody does a course with me, spoiler alert, I give you that book, and I'm like, get the crap out of your life, because
Yes.
I think it truly, and they found that in psychology too, right? The
Mhm.
hidden spaces in your home are very reflective of the things you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to be financially successful and emotionally successful when you've got stuff you don't want to deal with.
Mhm.
And as we start to do that and recognize we have enough, right, it becomes so much easier to see how powerful we are, and that there is nothing for us to be afraid of when it comes to stuff. It's
Yeah.
very powerful, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. Okay. We could probably talk about number one. I've got other ideas coming in my head a lot here, but let's go on to number two.
Okay, so number 2 is kind of a piggybacker on there's not enough, and this is that more is better.
Mm.
And this is the thing that has people fight and chase so hard that they lose their families, that they lose their health, that they lose the love in their life. And for some people, that they lose their money, right? We can see this in gambling,
Yeah.
right? Like, you could walk away with the 6 figures you've already won tonight, but more is better, right? And that causes, again, it's that panic BS thinking that has people make really, really bad decisions. And the thing I love to say, and women really get this too, or I'll say, the whole more is better, like, get the bigger house, get the nicer car, get the nicer clothes, get the bigger stuff, get the right, that idea.
Mhm.
And then they become a burden. And pretty soon it's like, I don't fucking clean this house. Sorry, I just swore. I don't want that sweater. I just dropped something. Flip. Now I got to pay $40 to go get it dry cleaned. And that's very different from, like you were saying a minute, like purchasing something because you just can't wait to take care of it and like
Mhm.
love it up and put it in its special spot and like honor it every time you see it and be so grateful it's something that's in your world.
Yeah.
That is such a different experience from, I got to get more. I got to get more. Oh, well, Susie gets her nails done 3 times a week. So I've got to keep, it's like, what? Right. And it also has people never have that moment of satisfaction,
Right.
never define what success truly is. And for some people, it's your first, $100 sale. And for other people, it's the first 4-figure sale, the first 5-figure sale, the first 6-figure sale. And understanding not only is that possible, but more isn't necessarily better. I actually really like working right there in that sweet spot. That makes me so happy. And it keeps the company in a position where I have vacation time.
Mhm.
right? Where I'm not worried about payroll, right? Whatever it is for you, I'm just making stuff up, but everybody has their own moment where it's like, oh, more isn't better.
Yeah.
Where I am right now is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then from there, sometimes you can see, oh my gosh, I just got another idea. And then actually more comes in naturally as a consequence of being satisfied. And it's a very different way of going through life, especially when it comes to business and money.
That is so amazing. I'm loving this. I've got to give an example of where I see this. A lot of people think of, the tangible, practical items, the goods and services kind of thing. But I love to relate this to the stock market
Mm,
or how people are pursuing, because there's a lot, like you mentioned, gambling, right? There's a lot of danger in wanting more and more and more there. So I love to ask people before you buy an investment, you know, what's the rate of return that would be enough for you?
I love it.
And are you
Yeah.
gonna, when it gets that return, are you gonna sell? Right? Like making some of those pre-decisions can be a lot more helpful for people, right?
Mhm.
Knowing what is going to be the more that they're seeking when they go into something. So, like, the Marie Kondo thing, I love to have people pick, like, take a statement, a bank statement, an investment statement, hold it in your hand, right? Like, go through each item, see how it feels. Is it bringing you joy? You can do that same thing with intangibles, the same that you can with tangible type things too. So the things we're talking about here, wherever that is in people's lives, I hope that they're like, I need, like, because we might know, like, deep down, we might say, yes, I believe that there is enough. Yes, I believe that I don't need more. Um, but are we actually like living that in every single area of our lives? Probably none of us are 100%, right? There's always room to grow in some of these things. So it might be, as you're hearing us talk, think about, well, what area of life am I broke in? It
Mm,
might not be
yes.
monetary. It could be relationally. It could
Yes.
be emotionally, right? Like, and see what am I saying there's not enough of in that area? What am I saying I need more of in that area? Or something
Yes.
along those lines. Okay.
Now, Amanda, wait, I just have to pause there because that was brilliant. And I just have to share, like, secret, not secret. I guess I'm about to say it out loud. But I always my family really struggles with weight.
Mm,
It's just a thing we've all had to struggle with forever. And one of the things I did is exactly what you said when it came to my own health and my own
yeah.
fitness was I would watch myself eat, and it's like, did I need a second? Like, what was that? Right. And it really does apply. And I think what you just said is so, so important. So, anybody listening, watching, half listening, if your kid's crying, if you're whatever, I don't care, just take a second and ask yourself, where am I broke? Because we are meant to live this life to the fullest and we are meant to enjoy all the different aspects of our life. And it is possible to have them all humming if we're checking in and asking that question. So,
Yeah.
I just had to give you massive kudos for that because that was brilliant.
Thank you. We talk all the time here. Wealth is not just monetary, right?
That's right. Not even close.
So, okay. So as we're thinking now, not just about money, let's go into number 3 and see how it can help us along the way as well.
This one I think is my favorite. And when we
Okay.
look at the state of the world, I think this one can definitely go into every area, literally. And this is the myth that, well, that's just the way it is.
Mm,
And this one is nasty. I mean, it is nasty. And it has robbed more people of the life that they deserve to live than anything else. And I get it. I mean, I think we all get it. Like, there are times you're just like, I don't even care anymore. Like, oh my God, right? I had somebody wanted to hire me not long ago. I think I shared this with you. And I was like, what do you want the title of the talk to be? And she was like, can you make it, are you effing kidding me? And I was like, it's like, that's how people feel right now. It's like, that's just
mhm.
the way it is right now. Right. And I totally got it. We were laughing. And it comes from this idea that, like, once we try something once or twice and it doesn't go exactly the way we wanted it to, we throw our hands up and go, well, I guess that's just the way it is. And I did that for years in my career. Well, I guess women just don't get up here. I guess we just don't have women in this room when we're talking about company culture and financial projections and benefits, which mostly affect women, and all of the other things that are so critical. I guess that's just no, no, nothing is unchangeable. Nothing. You know, and I've said to people when they get nervous about this, there's two scenarios I always give. And one is there are people who are in prison for murder who have found a way to be forgiven.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, come on. And let's hope no one listening is in that position. And if you are, I gotcha. Right. Like, it's like, okay, that's a big one. And you can undo that to the point that you can ask for forgiveness for something you've done that's wrong. And that's not just the way it is. Right. You are allowed to change and adapt at any moment and expand and become a better person while cleaning up your messes. Anything is clean upable. And I truly believe that. And then the other sort of example I give here, and I don't think this is just me. I feel like I've heard this, though I don't remember where, to be totally frank. I never say it. I've never heard it said quite like this. I am a big studier. Is that a word? Student of, studier, researcher. I read a lot about psychology, human psychology, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But this idea that language is the one thing that we can use to lock ideas in. Okay. So if you ever watch a 3-legged dog run, right? He's never like, God, do you remember last June when I had 4 legs? Like, no, right? He's like out there playing, right? Because they don't have language to lock in memories. And language is the tool. It's extraordinarily powerful. Obviously, it's how we're having this conversation, but it's what allows us to lock in lies and to lock in beliefs and to lock in this idea that, well, I guess that's just the way it is. And the example I love to use here is human. And this is that, before we had language as beings, remember, you can't remember your childhood before you had language because you didn't have language to lock in the memories, right? You couldn't talk to yourself about it. So if we had language, I think the human design is brilliant because we learn to walk before we learn how to speak. And that is not an accident. Because how many able-bodied babies learn how to walk? 100%.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. It's a 100% success rate. Like, oh my God. And the reason is, I believe, is because you can't lie to yourself about it. Because you can imagine if we're 5 and we're trying to learn how to walk, it's going to be like, I'm such an idiot. My ass is so big. My diaper's too big. And I don't know what I was doing today. And walking's just not for me. Everybody else can walk. It's just not for me. I can't do it. Right. I mean, you can hear it. Yeah. It's total BS. And so this whole idea, this is just the way it is only for human beings because we have language. And so what I advise anyone to do is really question what you've locked in for yourself. And start to ask, is that just the way it is? Like when you're standing in a grocery store and you decide with language that you can't take care of your family and yourself? Is that real? Or is that something you said once?
Right.
And that's where all the power is. If we can understand that we can unlock the power of language instead of having it entrap us, it's a very, very powerful moment and exercise to start to question things you've said to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. This is resonating with me as a mom because I have a 3.5-year-old. He's learned to speak within the last year or so, and he's already repeating the same phrases all the time. And this one that I hear it. So he'll want to know how something works. So want to do something, not how it really works. And we somehow along the way, he's heard that's not how it works. And he'll say that all the time. And I'll catch myself every once in a while saying, trying to get him to sit down because it's time for dinner, but he doesn't want to. And but that's not how it works. When it's time for dinner, we all sit down. You're right. And trying to get him to conform when he doesn't want to. And I'm like, I don't want him saying that when he's 25 and he's stuck in a job and he thinks, well, this is how it works. I can't do something different. Right. Yeah. So, kind of a confession there.
Yeah.
We're teaching him all kinds of other powerful things. Who loves you the most? He knows the answer to that question, and it's not me, right? It's a higher being. We call him God, right? We're trying to really instill that. He knows, money is not just to be spent, some of those kind of things. And actually, we ask him all the time, what are you going to be when you grow up? And he's like, well, I'm going to work. And why are you going to work? To help people. And I love that it's not to make money, right? So there's positive thing, but it's kind of now I want to go back and like think through, what do I hear myself saying to myself all the time, right? And where did those things come from? And then I guess the thing would be to find new language for it.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it comes from fear, right? It's like we have the conformities around, like
Mhm.
it's dinner time, it's this time. Like we do that because it helps us function, right?
Right, right.
But we're also seeing a lot of you're a boy, you're a girl,
Mhm.
you're black, you're white. We're seeing not so much right now, right? Like, and I do think what you're saying is very powerful. And I think this is how people deal with the, well, that's just the way it is issue. Because you can see that's just the way it is, allows slavery to continue. Well,
Right.
that's just the way it is, allows, gay people to be imprisoned. Well, that's just the way it is, allows for sex slaves. Like, I mean, pick a thing,
Right,
right?
right.
When we're like, no. So it's really sort of, I think, this is just the Sarah Walton theory, and I'm not saying I'm right, but what I think we're watching happen is a return to each of us to decide for ourselves. And I think that's what we're seeing in society at large, is people are like, that doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
And we have to find the balance between that doesn't work for me, but society still needs to work, right? Your child still has to eat. So it's like, what do we want to do about that? And I think it's going to be a return to self. And I think for women, especially, this is going to take some untraining because, I think you've heard me talk about this before, Amanda, but there's this new term out there, and I believe it came from Brene Brown, about 5 months ago now, and it's called high functioning codependence.
Mhm.
And the idea is that as women, we are so high functioning that we will run and 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 run to make sure everyone else is okay. Meanwhile, we're dying inside. Sound familiar, right? Like we're like, I don't think I peed today. I don't even know, but everybody else is great. And for us to look at that and start to trust our internal voices. How do I want to create dinner time in my family? I've never even asked myself that. How do I want to deal with dessert? I've never even asked myself that. How do I want to save for retirement? What do I want? I've never even asked. I've been so scared because everybody's telling me I don't even know. Right. And then they have somebody like you that can sit down with them and go, what do you want? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right. But it's going to become on us to break up this myth of that's just the way it is, to turn inward and to heal what I think is our own relationship to intuition. And you can call that God or faith or universe. For a lot of people, it's different. I happen to believe it's internal, that this never steers us wrong. And when we make a mistake or we do something that causes pain or sadness, most of the pain or sadness is over, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't. I knew, and I did. And that is the majority of the pain. Like whatever it is that we did, we can usually correct. But the pain is around, I knew and I didn't listen. And that can be a bad partnership. It could be a bad
Yeah.
financial decision. It can
Yeah.
be eating unhealthy. Like, I knew it. What the hell was that?
Mhm.
And that's when we let the rest of the world come in and tell us, well, this is the way it is. And your insides are screaming, but that doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
And I think kind of our job as we start to break up this myth of that's just the way it is, which we're doing around a lot of topics right now, is for us each individually to role model the way for that, to be generous and kind and provide grace for other people who are going through that. And I think what we're going to have to figure out is how we run a society that allows the individual to be part of the whole in a way that works for them. Because so far society has been, you can be part of the whole if it works for us.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
that's going to be a big switch. But I think
Yeah.
each one of these myths is going to be kind of rattled a little bit inside of this larger shift. And sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into a socio conversation, but I think they're connected because all
Mhm.
of us are into these myths and all of us are going to have to break through them ourselves.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that's helped me in this area is talking with immigrants who are told you have to assimilate, you have to learn to speak the language, you have to do these things, and to see how they grapple with that, to still live life on their terms and still
Yes.
feel in control and still hold on to who they really are. And if we think of we have these things inside of us that aren't they're not culture, they're who we really are. Um, are we how much are we being forced to assimilate, and would we push that on someone else too?
Mhm. That's right. I mean, these are questions I think we
Yep.
have to ask. And I think our relationship to money is a big part of that, right? Because
Yep.
why would somebody do all of that? Why would somebody go to assimilate and do all those things to find some form of freedom? And mostly that's usually financial freedom, which provides more choice and more opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we've said that the way it is you have to do everything we say, and then maybe there'll be enough for you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
these are these myths that it's time to question for each of
Yep.
us individually and then on a larger scale, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Related to money, the individual who's really inspired me in this way, his name is Charles Eisenstein. Have you heard of
Okay.
him? He
I
wrote
haven't.
this book called Sacred Economics. It doesn't have a particular like religious bent to it.
Ooh, I
Um,
like.
but his definition of financial freedom or financial independence is really a life without money.
I can get that.
Yeah. Like where you're not dependent on money, you might not even touch money. Like that's true freedom and independence. And I'm like, dude, homesteading, like growing my own food, that really would be my definition of financial independence. Am I there now? No, but am I moving in that direction? Yeah. Okay, I'm already financially independent. Money doesn't drive my life, right?
Oh,
I might not
yeah.
have millions of dollars, but if I'm living my life on my terms, money is not driving what do I do and when I do it. I'm already financially independent.
And I think that's a big realization, right? I think that's for a lot of us to get, because that's gorgeous, by the way. Love that. And I think what that offers, what you just said, is busting through these three myths is exactly how it allows that to
Mm-hmm.
happen. That's exactly how you get there,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not worried about it, or you're not allowing it to drive your behavior.
Yeah.
Right? You're not being
Yep.
greedy. You're not making bad decisions. You're not freaking out about the next
Yep.
sweater you're supposed to buy or whatever, because that is not freedom.
Right.
That is exhausting.
Yep.
That is
Yep.
like, oh my gosh, right? That's like slogging up the mountain kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
everything you just said is like, well, what if I decide what I need and there's enough of it now? And you could still make money. So do whatever you want to
Right.
do, but it doesn't drive your behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if I were to try to summarize, broke is really a state of mind. There's people with $0 in their bank account, zero income, but they're richer than any of us.
Yeah. I think that's right. I mean, and I know, listen, I want to be really respectful, because I know if you're listening and you're like, yeah, that's nice to say I can't pay my electric bill. I
Right.
hear you, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
get that too. I really do.
Right.
And you know what there is to do, there's a beautiful way to look at that. Like if someone listening or watching is in that position and you really feel, you're like, what the F are these two people talking about? Like, oh my God, I can't hit my bills, or I just paid my bills. I have $3 left in my account, right? Which I grew up watching, right? I absolutely know that is a real place where people live. And I think what we're saying is there are different ways to approach that don't hurt you emotionally.
Yeah.
Right? That there's no moral judgment on you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another place I think we get really twisted around money, is it's like, oh, I'm so good. I didn't, what are you talking about? Like if you use a hammer, you don't walk around going, oh my God, I totally used a hammer today and it was so great. It's like, what are you talking? Like it's a tool. Right. And you learn how to use it. And chances are, if you are in that situation, it is simply because nobody ever taught you how to use the tool. And there's nothing wrong with you at all. And that is letting go of the idea that you're broke. There might not be money there, but you are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. And that is the freedom around that idea. And as you start to understand that and you start to let go of the idea that there's not enough and you start to look around at the world, you'll start to see someone will hand you a book and you go, oh my God. And it's about financial freedom and how to create it. This is all learnable stuff. And if you are in that position, there is a way out. It's just that you haven't seen it yet, probably because no one around you has seen it yet. And you can be the person that leads the way. Always. I've seen it 1,000 million, hundreds, gazillion times. Yeah. That's not a number. But yes, I've seen it a lot.
Yeah. I love this. This is so good. I think that's a great place to kind of wrap things up and start moving into a little bit of where people find out more about you, I have to tell people all you have to do is go to Sarah's podcast, Game On Girlfriend, and just scroll through the titles. If you do nothing else, scroll through the titles, see what sparkles to you, and just start listening. Because, oh my gosh, they're so inspiring just reading, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, uh-huh. I need, yes, I need to hear that right now too. So kudos to you for your headlining work there
Oh,
and
thank
titling your
you.
episodes. What
I'll be
else should
totally
people know?
honest. I'll be totally honest. I sit down and go, "What did I hear today from people?" Right, and that
Mm,
literally is how we write our titles.
yeah.
But it's a true story. Um, so I also I'm on YouTube. I do a weekly video called Sarah Uncut, where I turn my phone around and start talking, and we never know what's going to happen. But it is really about what is it like to be, a business mentor? What is it like to be a
Mhm.
coach and help people around mindset? And what does my life really look like? Because I think like there's so much facade and junk around there. Sometimes you'll see me without makeup, totally sweaty, just hang on to your hats and glasses. Um, and I had somebody actually tell me today she decided to work with me because I didn't have Botox. I was like, well, that is a first and I'll take it. All
Yeah.
right, next up. That is the funniest thing anybody's ever told me. I was laughing so hard. Anyway, Sarah Uncut. And then you can just head over to sarahwalton.com. And for those of you that do own businesses, is it okay if I share a free tool, Amanda?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, because I really like this one. And I wish I'd had it when I started out. And for anybody who was having that broke conversation earlier in your head, um, I have something called a freedom calculator. So at sarahwalton.com/freedom, where you can pull that down and it actually calculates how much money you would need to make in a month to feel free. Like, oh my God, I could like, oh, oh my gosh, we're free. Like that kind of a feeling. And so it really goes through how to figure out what that number is. And then for those of you that own businesses, there's a whole bunch of resources after the calculator that tells you actually what you can do around branding and sales and marketing to help you reach that number. And I'm really proud of that tool. I really love it.
Yeah, I love that you're doing number-driven change rather than changing and hoping the numbers follow. That's exactly how we approach things too. You might have a goal you want to go to, start with the numbers, and then figure out what needs to change to reach that goal first.
That's right. Yeah. Because if we don't have something to aim at, we aim at nothing
Right.
and it
Right.
causes problems. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we are not tuned into our numbers, we don't really know what's really going on to be able to make that adjustment.
Here, here.
Yeah, love it. Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. I learned a lot today. I'm totally inspired, and I'm gonna be doing some great journaling and thought exercises from here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, and folks, be sure you go visit sarahwalton.com/freedom. Got it up on your screen right there. Get that calculator. Let us know how it helps you, and let us know how we can help you break through to a smarter, stabler, freer financial future.